Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a brilliant chess battle packed with tactics, strategy, and surprises. Let's dive right in. Wesley So pushes his pawn to e4, immediately staking out the center with swagger and forcing the battle lines to form like two armies smelling blood. Gadir Guseinov replies with pawn to e6, raising the French shield calmly, preparing a stubborn barricade and whispering, "You'll have to break me," to Wesley. Wesley So marches pawn to d4, doubling down on central control and daring black to trade or crack under pressure like a besieged fortress. Gadir Guseinov answers with pawn to d5, meeting the center head-on and launching a classical pawn duel that promises tension and sharp pawn trades. Wesley So brings his knight to d2, a flexible redeployment that eyes e4 and c4, keeping options open and avoiding early fireworks while building latent menace. Gadir Guseinov strikes with pawn to c5, challenging white's center aggressively and signaling a fight for space. Gears of conflict begin to mesh. Wesley So develops his knight from pawn to f3. Simple, efficient, aiming at d4 and f5 while keeping his king ready for future castling and counterplay. Gadir Guseinov's pawn from c5 captures on d4. cx4, ripping white's central pawn and opening lines, a small bloodletting that spices the middle game. Wesley So's knight captures back on d4. x4, reclaiming the center and planting a sentinel in the heart of black's position with bright tactical possibilities. Gadir Guseinov develops knight to h6 and h6, reinforcing the d4 fight and preparing to contest squares while keeping his pieces tied to central skirmishes. Wesley So plays bishop to b5, bb5, pinning and probing like a scout, threatening pressure on cheeks and hinting at tactical ruptures around black's center. Gadir Guseinov answers with bishop to d7, b7, calmly unpinning, solidifying the queenside and saying, "Not today," to Wesley's cheeky intruder. Wesley So's knight captures on cheeks in x6, a bold strike that rips a defender from black's camp and forces immediate structural concessions. Drama at once. Gadir Guseinov recaptures bs6 movement. The b-pawn eats on h6 and accepts doubled structure while opening a file muscle. Trading structure for activity and survival. Wesley So retreats his bishop to d3, bd3, retooling pieces toward kingside tension and keeping eyes on f4 and h7 as the plot thickens. Gadir Guseinov plays bishop to d6, bd6, aiming squarely at white's kingside and setting up a classical formation ready for trades or tactical strikes. Wesley So deploys his queen to e2, qa2, connecting forces, adding support to e4 and d4, and keeping options for battery or central pressure. Gadir Guseinov threads his queen to 7, qe7, lining up on the c-file, eyeing potential kingside pawns and coordinating with rooks, all gears meshing. Wesley So brings his knight back to f3, and f3, regrouping defensively and preparing to launch or parry future attacks, while keeping the king safe. Gadir Guseinov captures on e5 with pawn d4. A tactical pawn snatch that opens lines and dares white to expose his queen and react fast. Wesley So recaptures with qh4. Hen can Sen. Qx4. Hen, Kim be Seben. Sweeping the center with his queen. Regaining material and now aiming at black's kingside with theatrical menace. Gadir Guseinov develops knight to f6 and f6. Natural and sharp. Targeting fr and g4 squares while hinting at swift counterplay toward white's center. Wesley So slides his queen to h4. Qh4. A saucy sortie threatening the kingside and dangling mating ideas while keeping the tension tightly wound. Gadir Guseinov plays pawn to h6. Has e6. Kicking the queen and creating luft. A modest but practical move that says, no annoying pins here. Thanks. Wesley So castles kingside. Tucking the monarch behind a fortress while unleashing rooks and shifting the tempo toward a fiery middle game. Gadir Guseinov thrusts pawn to c5. c5. Trying to unclog the position and pry open files, a structural push that seeks to undermine white's center. Wesley So develops bishop to g5. Big a5. Pinning. Taunting the knight and stirring psychological pressure as the board hums with tactical potential. Gadir Guseinov replies with knight to d5. nd5. Leaping into the fray to challenge the pin and centralize his forces like a gladiator stepping forward. Wesley So returns bishop to e4. b4. Eyeing black's kingside and setting potential traps. Keeping pieces active and the atmosphere electric. Gadir Guseinov swings rook to bait. Rebite. Preparing to contest queenside files and hinting at counterplay against white's potential weaknesses, a quiet muscle flex. Wesley So pushes pawn to c4. c4. Trying to shatter black's center and open lines, it's a bold wedge. An invitation to chaos or orchestration. Gadir Guseinov moves knight to forward. nf4. An aggressive hop that lands in white's camp. Threatening forks and wreaking mischief like a vulture circling. Wesley So brings rook from f1 to done. f-done. It's Tony. Centralizing heavy pieces. Increasing pressure on d-file and sharpening the board like a blade being honed. Gadir Guseinov smashes with rx bd2. Rook captures on b2. A daring raid that snatches material deep in white's territory and ignites complications. Wesley So steps his king to f1, in Willis. Cafone. Esikone. Perfurone. Quietly escaping possible tactical pins, and preparing to rally forces with steely calm in a turbulent sea. Gadir Guseinov lifts his rook to fight. R-fight. Mobilizing the heavy pieces toward the king's side and signaling readiness to open fire or reinforce defenses. Wesley So sacrifices material with rx d6. Rook captures on 6. Ripping into black structure and detonating tactical possibilities, a courageous, blood-pumping assault. Taught. Gadir Guseinov responds hx g5. Pawn captures on g5. Grabbing material and opening the h-file. But the position grows sharp and unpredictable like a powder keg. Wesley So follows with r/d7. Rook captures on 7. Piling on. Tearing another layer of black's position and turning the game into a gladiatorial spectacle. Gadir Guseinov answers, qsd7. Queen captures on 7. Trading rooks for queen intervention to stabilize matters and reduce some of the immediate heat. Wesley So grabs with qxe5. Queen captures on g5. Reclaiming material and suddenly eyeing black's weakened kingside with predatory intensity. Gadir Guseinov thrusts pawn to 5. Trying to blunt white's queen. Open lines and counterattack, a punch intended to shock Wesley's front line. Wesley So takes on Fowler with qes Fowler. Queen captures on f Fowler. Slicing through the center and exchanging pieces while keeping the initiative and tactical threats alive. Gadir Guseinov plays fc4, nun. Pawn captures on e4. A reflective counterblow that scoops a central pawn and opens further skirmish lines toward white's camp. Wesley So replies, qs4, hetomeverendain, nobumeester. Queen captures on e4. Recovering material and reasserting centralized electrical presence. Ready to pounce on any slip. Gadir Guseinov activates Rook to f6. af6. A defensive yet resourceful lift that covers ranks and eyes lateral infiltration. The rook becomes a roaming sentinel. Wesley So brings Rook to Aone, pen. Rione. Centralizing the heavy piece to support the queen and pressure open files. Tightening the noose with deliberate rhythm. Gadir Guseinov plays queen to b7. One mesten is so in the hen, in der Todesstern and ht. qb7. Sidestepping attacks and linking rooks. Aiming to regroup and blunt white's mounting threats with patient defense. Wesley So slides his queen to 7. To 7. qs7, pen. A theatrical invasion into black's side. Threatening checks and exploiting dark square weaknesses with a hungry gleam. Gadir Guseinov replies, qsf7, no is siwe. qs7, no. Neutralizing direct threats. Offering queenside solidity while trying to steer the game into calmer waters amid the storm. Wesley So checks with Kuheit. Delivering a sharp checking blow that squeezes black's king and forces immediate defensive choreography under pressure. Gadir Guseinov answers, co-fight. Blocking and trading queenside resources to diffuse mating nets. A sobering move that cools one corner of the battlefield. Wesley So gives a tempo with qhiv. qffe. Keeping the king under the microscope and maintaining the initiative while teasing more complications down the file. Gadir Guseinov retreats king to date. Kate, Pission Moden Niketwood, Etiodwonen, is slipping towards safety but into a cramped cellar where every square smells like danger and tactical traps. Wesley So centralizes queen with qe5. F5. He. Dominating the center. Duel. Eyeing latent forks and checks while setting a calm but lethal tone for the coming sequence. Gadir Guseinov counters with RB6. Indian. Kangwolmesh 6. Trying to activate the rook. Challenge files and stabilize the 6th rank, a practical attempt to wrest control. Wesley So plays Ardonish. Ardonisse, Henbionmesh So Pise, ist ein Moment Verstärkungen. Bringing another heavy into the attack with tempo. Piling pressure on the back ranks and making black feel the tightening noose. Gadir Guseinov shuffles king to Sate. Gasait. Inching toward safety and hoping the cramped position doesn't explode, the king becomes an anxious traveler. Wesley So replies Kefur. Kefur. Repositioning centrally with menace. Coordinating with rooks. And keeping the option to infiltrate or trade, depending on the verdict. Gadir Guseinov slips king to 7, Pemojtuel identisch. K7, Moyashidai, Tesh 7. Moving deeper into the board's thicket. Seeking shelter yet risking exposure, a perilous trek for the monarch. Wesley So plays QE3. QE3. Steadying the queen on a versatile square. Linking pieces and preparing tactical probes that could decide the entire contest. Gadir Guseinov fires F4. R4. Driving the rook into white's territory to harass. Zake counterplay and complicate calculations, a last-ditch attempt to muddle the waters. Wesley So retreats queen to c3. QC. V. A precise reposition that eyes critical diagonals and supports central infiltration, while keeping tempo and composure. Gadir Guseinov moves king back to Sate. Kshait. A nervous retreat that signals black's king still searches for real safety amid a field of enemies. Wesley So drops his queen to d3. QD3. Consolidating control. Guarding important squares and flexing quiet dominance as the endgame silhouette takes shape. Gadir Guseinov plays queen to e7. QE7. Aiming to exchange or trade off threats and reduce white's attacking resources. Pragmatic. Defensive. And slightly resigned. Wesley So advances pawn to h4. a4. Pushing for space and creating breathing room for his pieces while hinting at kingside assault or a tempo-grinding maneuver. Gadir Guseinov plants rook on b7. RB7. Genwar ination, etrinazeren. Repositioning to the 7th rank with intent to contest files and defend weak points, fighting for lifelines. Wesley So slides. Rook to e1, Heria. Rayone. Doubling down on central control and coordinating heavy pieces for a decisive push, the atmosphere crackles with intent. Gadir Guseinov shifts rook to b4. RB4. A provocative infiltration into white's structure that tries to stir counter threats and complicate Wesley's clean plans. Wesley So calmly brings his king to gun. Kagoni. Tucking the monarch more securely and preparing to unleash rooks and queen with renewed cohesion. Gadir Guseinov plays queen to d7, Henwar So, Hunver 7. K7, Hunver Ninchen, Wonen Peste, Goren Jetches, Genomene 7. Aiming to consolidate. Trade off danger and anchor his remaining forces in hopes of surviving the storm. Wesley So plays K3. K3. sliding the queen into a probing outpost that eyes queenside weaknesses and prepares to switch the focus with deadly precision. Gadir Guseinov sidesteps king to b7, Hedo unazero bunikianta shordian. Kabia 7, Ilmodbenent. Inching sideways seeking shelter behind pawns, while still haunted by threats that lurk on open files. Wesley So replies, Qa3. Qa3. Repositioning the queen back centrally with surgical intent. Balancing threats and guarding entry points for a final. Decisive operation. Gadir Guseinov answers Kia d6. Key easy. Offering exchanges and attempting to trade off the sparks before they ignite into irreversible disaster. Wesley So plants knight on f5. Nefiv. A powerful central hop that injects new tactical venom and threatens forks. Revealing the final act's opening bars. Gadir Guseinov plays qd4, fun. qd4. Thrusting his queen into central combat to trade and simplify, a risky bid to wring relief from chaos. Wesley So replies, qg3. Qg 3. An elegant regroup that eyes both defense and invasion. Keeping black's queen honest while sharpening mating nets. Gadir Guseinov pushes queen to d2. Qd2 probing deeper into white zone to exchange queens or create complications. But the net tightens. Wesley So brings knight to d3. nd3. Rerouting for defense and attack. Blocking checks and preparing to leap into decisive squares like a coiled spring. Gadir Guseinov plays d4, Niore. d4. Activating the rook to invade central lanes. Attempting last-minute harassment that hopes to blunt white's edge. Wesley So's queen captures on g7, with qx 7, for no united pair. Qis 7, so winners. A clinical blow that wins material and delivers a thunderous check. The position beginning to crack. Gadir Guseinov slides, king to 8. K8. Fleeing the heat, but stepping toward the board's rim, where safety is an illusion and danger lurks. Wesley So checks with QE fight. Kung fight. Squeezing black's king further and forcing movement while keeping up the psychological pressure that smells of imminent victory. Gadir Guseinov retreats king to b7. Petro Veshinokus, Kemedati 7. Kb7, Ense. Still dancing on a knife edge. Trying to escape mating nets yet haunted by white's coordinated army. Wesley So finishes with Nx 5. Knight captures on c5 delivering a final. Decisive strike that rips open black's defenses and seals the dramatic. Explosive conclusion. Danwunayan. Explosive conclusion. That's it for today's video. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next one. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.